Welcome back to the OHSU Effect Inside Health and Science at OHSU. It's time to talk about a topic that some people find uncomfortable, end-of-life care. How can we talk to our parents about this, and what do we need to know? With us now on the OHSU Effect is Dr. Susan Tolle with the OHSU Ethics Center. Hi, Susan.
Hello.
So like I mentioned, healthcare at the end of life can be a taboo subject, but that seems to be changing, isn't it?
Well, in Oregon, people have been a little more open than a lot of the rest of the country. And more people do make a plan ahead of time than other parts of the country.
Well, tell us how Oregon has been a leader in this area.
Oregon has what's called the Physician Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment Program, called POLST. Some call it the bright pink form. It's not for people who are healthy. It's for those with advanced illness or frailty. And it takes an advanced directive and it turns it into action as medical orders. So you're not talking about if this thing happens to me or that. You're saying, in the here and now, tonight, if I'm found down, I want these things done, and I don't want others done. It was developed here, and it's now being used in parts of 33 other states.
Oh, wow. So it's very specific, like you mentioned, specific instructions. So tell us, how did this POLST program come about?
It came about because so often people would have an advance directive, they would have talked to their families, but their loved one might reach a place where they couldn't speak for themselves. And suddenly they'd be rushed to the hospital, they'd be on a breathing machine, and family would be saying, this isn't what mom wanted. And this is designed to be sure that your wishes will be respected and can be respected wherever you might move to as you are more ill.
Yeah, I mean, these end-of-life issues can become political sometimes. You know, I'm thinking specifically of Terry Schiavo. And so it sounds like the POLST program really takes all of the politics out of the process.
The goal is it's about you. It's about what you want. It's about assuring what you want happens, no matter what else may happen in the process. And it's making it clear in such a way that we don't need to bring other people in, the courts, anyone else, into your care, because your wishes are clearly spelled out, and they can be to have as well as to limit treatment.
How do you measure the success of this program?
Well, one of the successes is how often patients and families are saying, my loved one's wishes were respected. They were truly listened to, and we've actually called thousands of people and asked how things went near the end of life, and been hearing much more often, it's still hard, but my loved one's wishes were respected.
Wow, so you do follow-up even. Wow, that's great. So these are obviously difficult decisions to begin, or discussions, to begin with a loved one. So what kind of advice would you offer, a person who needs to talk to their elderly parent about this?
Well, it's better if it's a stepwise process and not an all-at-once event. When people are healthier, many are willing to say, who's the best person to make decisions for me? And fill out an advance directive and realize any of us could be in an accident. And that's not so frightening as it can be to say, well, now I have, for example, advanced cancer. And I'm not talking about if things happen. I'm talking about my health in the current state and what I want done. I'd like to take my advance directive. I'd like to apply it to the here and now. And what we find is that often adult children are a little cautious about bringing this up, and often the senior is, I have some things I want to tell you, and we've been cautious about asking them, but often they are very open, very clear about some things they want and some things they do not want.
Do doctors let their patients know that this is available? I mean, maybe they aren't aware of the POLST program.
There are places where people are told often as they move into a retirement community or are enrolled in hospice, but it's about more than hospice. And most people who have a POLST form are not in hospice and are still too healthy for hospice. So it moves things farther upstream. But if there is a person who says, it doesn't matter what else happens, I would never want to go to intensive care, never want to be on a breathing machine, then you're a candidate for POLST now.
What else needs to happen in Oregon to improve health care for those facing the end of life, and how is OHSU involved in that?
Well, certainly education of healthcare professionals remains an ongoing need. We have people who move into the state from other states who are not as knowledgeable about end-of-life care as most of those who practice in Oregon. We have a need to train the next generation. So outreach conferences all over Oregon, partnering with others, is extremely important so that everyone in every town in our state can help better educate patients and families and support them in having conversations that can be hard.
Do you have numbers? Do you know how many people have used the POLST program?
We have a statewide registry for POLST, and over 60,000 POLST forms have been submitted to the registry since it went live December 3rd, 2009.
Oh, wow. So just a couple years. So how does a person get more info about the POLST program and that state registry? How do they sign up?
Well, if your healthcare professional works with you to complete a POLST form, they are the ones who will send it to the registry in your behalf unless you don't want to be in it. But the default is actually to take care of that for you because, as most people say, why wouldn't you want it to be found? And doctors have POLST forms, hospitals have POLST forms, long-term care facilities have POLST forms. So it's your healthcare professional who should be able to help you and your family with this.
And it sounds pretty simple. And I mean, does a lawyer need to get involved? Anything like that?
These are medical orders. These are between you and your doctor or nurse practitioner or physician assistant, if that's who you have your relationship with. And this is like getting an order for antibiotics. These are orders. These are orders about what you want, but ordering others in healthcare who may care for you to do what you want in a way healthcare can understand and respect.
And I'm sure sometimes there's situations where that person will fill out a POLST form, but maybe their children don't like what's on it, right?
There can be conflicts at end of life throughout the process, with or without paperwork. There can be families who disagree, and there can be situations that come up that were never thought of. You'd plan for something that might happen, maybe a big stroke, but what you have is something very different. And how do you apply what you know in that circumstance? The POLST form is very clear about what treatments you do and do not want. But there can be times where people think in this clinical situation they would want something different done.
Dr. Susan Tolle on the OHSU Effect Inside Health and Science at OHSU.